Hello artists, today we'll be decorating our Kelsey Montague wing mural feathers. So on your piece of paper you have two feathers. One I've already decorated, this was for another class, and then I have a blank one. Your page will also have two feathers. That is because you can decorate one feather that will stay at school to be put in the mural, and then your second feather you can take home. If you want to spend all of your time just working on one feather, that's okay, but that would be the feather that stays at school. If you decide to do two and have time for two, then you could take the second one home. But your first priority, the most important thing, is that you have a feather that is finished that can be put up in the school mural. For your feathers, you can choose to use colored pencils or markers. We have an option of alcohol markers or Crayola markers. So before you start your feathers, you want to think of a design. What is your design going to be? What are you going to put on your feather? Your feather could be made of patterns, like the one I have here. It could be a realistic feather, like a hawk feather or a peacock feather. It could be a feather that has a theme. Maybe your theme is a pink Barbie feather. Maybe your theme is a Mario feather. Maybe you want to do your feather all black and white. Maybe you want to do your feather an ombre or a rainbow. That is your choice. I am going to do a feather with abstract designs in it, and I picked out some colors that I'm going to use for my feather. If you want to test colors out to make sure you like how they look, you can use your paper. Just do it outside the lines because these feathers are going to be cut out anyways. So I'm going to get started on my feather, and I'm thinking and looking at examples of how I want this feather to look. I know that I want to have some white on my feather, so what am I going to do to keep that white? I'm going to leave some areas empty so that they can stay white. I'm not going to put marker on them. Another thing that you might want to do is grab a pencil. I just walked away because I forgot a pencil and realized I could use a pencil to help me map out my designs. So very lightly with a pencil, I'm going to come in and start to make a design. You want to make sure that your design, that your pencil lines are light. And that's because when we go over the pencil with alcohol marker, you still might be able to see those pencil lines, and we can't erase them once there is marker on top of them. So make sure that you're drawing nice and light if you are using the pencil. Some artists might choose not to outline with a pencil, and that's okay, but remember that if you make a mistake, that you can't erase it, and we only get one copy of these feathers, okay? So I am using a pencil to make sure that I am happy with my creation, knowing that I can erase that pencil if I don't like what I did. Now, you guys know that I love to draw plants, so I decided to make my feather plant themed. And it's not just plants too, I'm adding some of these like bubbles and circles for decoration too. In this project, we can get really, really little with our details and make sure that it can be bigger things too, but we can also get little with the details. So I'm gonna put this on fast mode. It's really hard to talk and draw. You might have noticed that before in your own art. So I do better with my art when I'm not talking. So I'm gonna put this on speedy mode so you can see how my feather turns out. When you're using alcohol markers, you'll notice that the marker has two sides. One side is what we call a brush tip. And this brush tip, it's really only for small lines and small details. The brush tip is really thin and fragile, and we want to make sure that it stays that way. If you are pressing too hard with this really fine tip, you're going to flatten it, and that's going to wreck it. So press really lightly. And again, this brush tip is only for small details. On the other side, you have a tip that looks more like a block. It looks like a highlighter. So this one, it's going to be for filling in those big spaces. You can press a little harder with it because it's not as fragile, but you still don't need to ever press hard with alcohol markers. Another important thing I need to remind you of is that when you're using alcohol markers, they bleed through. I really need to have a messy mat under my paper. I'm going to go get one once I'm done talking. If you are using alcohol markers or Sharpies, you need a messy mat. Also, as a reminder, block tip, the broad end of your marker is for big details. The brush tip, the skinny side, that's for the little details, and you have to be really gentle with it.